Hi, thank you very much. Thanks for that introduction, and hi everybody. It is one of those strange things doing these kind of Zoom hybrid things. So I know that there are lots of people out there, but I can't see many of you, but it's good to be with you all today. So yeah, as have been introduced as, I'm Grace. I'm an Anglican vicar in Manchester. I'm also a tutor at Luther King Centre for Theology and Mission. And probably most importantly, for the purposes of this talk, I'm a Diocesan Environment Officer with a deep passion for creation care and climate action. And to this end, I have co-written a Grove book with a colleague of mine, Mark Coleman. It was published last year, called Climate Action as Mission, and it's part of the Mission and Evangelism series. And today what I'm going to do is just give you a little talk about the journey of bringing the book into fruition, why we chose Grove, and what's happened since the book has been published, to hopefully give you a sense of what our Grove book journey has been like. And it is a real pleasure to be here today as part of the celebrations for Grove's 50th year. I first came across Grove books about 15 years ago in my first stint at Theological College, and I quickly found them to be invaluable, accessible sources on theological issues, current theological issues, as has already been mentioned. And this will probably be said a lot today, but it is worth repeating that I've always found Grove books to be unique in the way that they offer theologically robust publications that are truly accessible. The size of them means that they're not daunting to someone new to theology. Their cost means that they are affordable to most, but neither of these two facts mean that they are any less theologically robust. And that's important because it gives their publications academic credibility. And I promise you, nobody at Grove has paid me to say this. But anyway, I have become increasingly active within the field of climate action over the years. And with the advent of Christian climate action alongside church movements such as eco-church, I really began to think about what our responses as individuals and churches could and should be in terms of our mission. I've been on site at actions such as the Northern Rebellion in 2019, which shut down a major road in central Manchester, and which since has remained shut to most traffic, buses and cycles only really for most of the road, because actually when the road was shut down, people realised how lovely it was to have a car-free zone in Deansgate in Manchester. In my own ministry, I began to see how we could work collaboratively to be churches and work with communities to adopt holistic and whole life visions towards creation care and climate action. But with this came many questions. I was asked why I was a vegetarian, why I was cycling now most of the time instead of driving. And the person who asked me this said, because, you know, after the flood, God had promised not to destroy the earth or to kill all living creatures again. And so my response to that was, well, God's not doing this, we are. But it got me thinking about our theological justifications for climate action. I have also personally wrestled with some aspects of non-violent direct action, and some of that is covered in the booklet. And in particular, I've wrestled with some of the disruption and damage that's been caused and the pushing for arrest, which is often part of the strategy. So I was beginning to reflect deeply on what our missional calling was in this area. And it was during this time that I saw a tweet. For those of you who don't know me, I basically live my life on Twitter. But I saw this tweet, and the tweet read, "Mission is one of the things that we are called to. The stewardship of creation is another." And this division really struck me, along with a conversation that I'd had with a clergy colleague who expressed reticence. It was an Anglican clergy colleague. I could say I'm really from an Anglican background myself, an evangelical background myself. And she expressed reticence about engaging with green issues because she felt that it would take her away from mission. So in our churches, we talk a lot about mission, and we talk about mission action plans and outreach. And I began to think very strongly that a theological argument needed to be developed to demonstrate how climate action and creation care is mission and how it is woven through all 5 marks of mission. And I wanted to be able to give a good foundational argument, particularly within the evangelical field, but particularly but across all aspects of the church, for why creation care needed to be seen very much as central to mission. So this started to become something I started to voice in various places. And one of the places that I was speaking at, my co-author, Mark, who was a retired priest and a climate activist, was also speaking. And afterwards he said to me, "You should write a Grove book." And I knew instantly that this was a great idea, but I replied, "Only if you co-write it with me," because I knew that Mark's voice would add a lot of depth to the book. And so hence the idea for the Grove book was born. Now, the book itself starts with a quote from the Archbishop of Canterbury, which for Mark and I really helps us to set the tone of the argument that we wanted to present. And this is the quote: "To live out my Christian faith is to follow Jesus. That must include standing alongside the most vulnerable and marginalised on the front lines of the climate emergency. As faith communities, my prayer is that we might stand together, emissaries of love and hope, calling for God's justice and peace in this precious world. Now is the time for action." Now, we wrote this book during the pandemic, and we were acutely aware, both of us being parish priests, of the pressures that clergy and churches were under. And this continues to be the case with the cost of the living crisis, dwindling congregations. And so what we wanted to do is, with the book, is give easy, relatable stories and ideas that would help churches engage with climate action and creation care. And the Mission and Evangelism series fitted this really well. We also wanted to demonstrate that the missional call to go and make disciples is as relevant now as it's ever been, and that climate action, far from being additional to mission, is integral in it. So to that end, we did things like we included data from Youthscape, which showed that 9 out of 10 young people feel that churches were not doing enough about the climate emergency and were becoming disillusioned with churches as a result. The thrust of the argument throughout the book is that we must see climate action as part of the whole picture of mission. To talk about creation is as a gift from God, is to preach the good news and to teach new believers about scripture and Christian faith, to take practical action as individuals and churches, to prevent further ecological damage, is to respond to the real and present human need with loving service, to speak out against some of the structures contributing to the climate emergencies, to partake in transforming those unjust structures. And to take climate action in all these forms is to work towards safeguarding the integrity of creation. So Grove seemed like the perfect choice for this kind of book, because as I've already said, it's an accessible format. And I work collaboratively across the diocese with ordained and lay people, seeking to find ways in which we can together respond to the climate emergency. And I feel very comfortable suggesting the book to all of them as a starting point, because whilst it is theological, it is not daunting for people who have not had theological training. And I think this is a real strength of Grove that can be further developed, the ability to be useful to people in the pews in a way that some theological books may be too overwhelming. I have certainly found this to be the case, and I would argue that the majority of people I've sold a book to, and I can't speak for online sales and think about the books that I've physically sold, have been to lay people who have had no theological training at all, but who are really interested in how their church can respond to the climate emergency and would like some further prompts, as well as some theological ideas that they can take back to their PCCs and church councils about why churches should be doing this and why this is inherently missional. So the format with the short chapters has been helpful for that, but I believe also it's been used for Bible studies because of the format of short chapters as well, which has been really good to hear. So really that's the story of the book, how it came about and how it is being utilised. I am personally delighted to be a Grove author and hope to be again in the future. But more importantly, I'm delighted that this form of media has enabled further exploration and discussion about creation care and climate action in local churches and in communities and amongst a wide range of people. And that's the end of my particular talk, but I'm happy to take a few questions or comments if anybody has any that they want to share.
Great, thank you very much, Grace. We do have time for 1 or 2 questions.
Grace, I have a question. One of the things you speak about, and we've spoken about this before, is the idea of using group books in Bible studies. So do you think that mission and climate action is something that could be divided up into shorter studies where, you know, you may have one on a particular issue, one on how to make your church more eco-friendly, one how to incorporate better living at home, I suppose. Is that something that you've thought about already?
I'm really, really sorry. The line broke up quite a bit there. So I couldn't get all...
I'll come a bit closer. So we've spoken before about using growth books for shorter Bible studies, and you say the one you've used so far. Is that something that you've got ideas for in the future on that topic? And how might that topic look? Different topics for church for kind of eco-living in churches, or and those at home as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a brilliant move. I think I know that the book has been used in various settings as Bible studies. Sometimes one or two places have used it as a Lent course because it lends itself quite well with the different chapters. And I can see that this being a possibility for developing more such booklets that can be used in that way. Certainly in the mission evangelism series, but also another series, and also particularly my interest is in creation care and climate action. I can see how, like you said, we could think about our personal lives and personal living, and we could see how we could make that into a publication that could be used also as a Bible study. So I think there's much potential there, yeah.
Alex, I'm just noticing people have made comments on the chat.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's possible to see them. Did any of the chat comments where people are asking questions?
We're on the case.
Can I ask a question about the booklet process?
Yes.
Hi, Grace, can you hear me?
Hi, can you come closer so I can hear you?
Up closer.
Thank you.
Come up higher.
This is the mic.
Oh, this is the mic here. Hello. I'm really encouraged by the comments you make about the distinctiveness of Grove in terms of its contribution and accessibility. I'm always hoping that I'm not going to put Colin on the spot here, but I'm always hoping as well that from an author's point of view, something distinctive about the Grove enterprise is the engagement with the editorial group and the way that the text, the proposals are received and then processed to publication. Can you say a little bit about that and what difference it made for you as an author?
Oh, absolutely. It was a great process, actually. It was the first, I think it was the first, maybe, yeah, but anyway, it was a really good process. I was trying to work out whether I'd done some more publishing before then, but anyway, it was a great process. And what was really good was that there was a really great communication and support and really helpful suggestions. It's really helpful when you produce something and write something to have a good critical friend to both be encouraging but also to say, I think this should go here and I think you need to say a bit more there, and to have that sort of objective eye on what you are working on and writing. And I found the process really helpful, and really helpful for me in terms of thinking about what I was trying to write and the order in which I was trying to write it to tell that overall story.